I was replaced by my dad's affair partner's children when he came back after 11 years, and my mother chose them over me every single time until I moved out at 17. Now she is divorced, broke, and begging for help, but my entire family is calling me cruel for only paying her lawyer fees and refusing to do more. I, 22F, am writing this because I need to know if what I did was wrong. Some family members are calling me cruel, but I think I did what needed to be done. Let me explain everything from the beginning. This involves my mother Catherine, 45F, and my father Colson, 48M. I need to give a lot of background for this to make sense. I grew up in Fontana until I was 17. My childhood was split into two very different parts. The first part was until I turned 6. My parents were together and things seemed normal. I have some memories from that time, but they are not clear. What I remember clearly is what happened when I was 6 years old. My father left us when I was 6. He did not just leave quietly. He had been having an affair with a woman named Bethany who worked at his office. One evening he came home and told my mother he was leaving. I was sitting on the stairs watching. My mother got on her knees at the front door. She was holding onto his leg and begging him not to go. He pulled his leg away and walked out. That image stayed with me. After he left, my mother had to figure out how to keep us afloat. She worked as a nurse, but her salary was not enough for everything. She picked up extra shifts at a clinic on weekends. Sometimes she would work night shifts and come home in the morning just as I was getting ready for school. We lived in a small apartment after we had to sell the house. My father paid nothing. He was supposed to pay child support, but he never did. My mother took him to court twice. Both times he claimed he had no money, even though we knew he was living in a nice house with Bethany. The legal fees cost my mother more than what she would have gotten from him, so she stopped trying. Those years from 6 to 16 were hard, but my mother and I were close. She would make pancakes on Sunday mornings when she was not working. We had this thing where we would tap our noses twice as a secret signal when we were in public. She told me stories about her own childhood and about how her parents had struggled too. She said we were survivors. When I turned 16, things changed, but not in a good way. Bethany got sick. She had cancer. It took about a year and then she died. I did not know this was happening because my father had not contacted us in 10 years. I found out later that during that year he had been taking care of Bethany and her 2 kids. She had a son and a daughter from a previous relationship. The son was 8 and the daughter was 6 when Bethany died. About 2 months after Bethany died, my father showed up at our apartment. My mother opened the door and just stared at him. He said he wanted to talk. She let him in. I was in my room, but I could hear them talking in the living room. He told her he had made mistakes. He said he had been thinking about her and about me. He said he wanted to make things right. My mother started crying. She told him she had never stopped loving him. I walked into the living room at that point and told him to leave. My mother told me to go back to my room. I refused. I asked him where he had been for the last 10 years. I asked him why he never paid child support. I asked him if he remembered that I existed. He said he was sorry and that he wanted to be a family again. My mother asked me to give them privacy. I went to my room, but I did not close the door. I heard them talking for 2 more hours. When he left, my mother came to my room. She told me that people make mistakes and that everyone deserves a second chance. I told her that he had a decade to reach out and never did. She said I was too young to understand complicated adult relationships. They started dating. My father would come over twice a week for dinner. My mother would cook his favorite meals. She bought new clothes and started wearing makeup again. She talked about him constantly. She said he had changed and that he was a good man who had lost his way. I asked her if she remembered begging him not to leave while on her knees. She told me I was holding on to bitterness and that I needed to let go of the past. I asked her if he had paid back any of the child support he owed. She said money did not matter and that family was more important. After 2 months of dating, my father told my mother about the 2 kids. He said they needed a mother figure and that he was struggling to raise them alone. My mother immediately said she would help. She said it was the right thing to do. One Saturday afternoon, my father showed up with both kids. The boy was named Travis and the girl was named Winona. My mother acted like she had known them forever. She hugged them and told them they could call her whatever they were comfortable with. She had baked cookies that morning. She gave them a house tour and showed them where everything was. Travis and Winona started coming over every weekend. Then it became every weekend and 2 days during the week. Then my father said it would be easier if they just moved in. My mother agreed immediately. She did not ask me what I thought. They moved in during the summer before my senior year. Travis took the guest room and Winona took the small office room. My mother bought new furniture for both rooms. She took them shopping for clothes and school supplies. She signed them up for activities. Winona wanted to do gymnastics, so my mother paid for classes. Travis wanted to play basketball, so she bought him new shoes and gear. Meanwhile, I needed money for my senior year expenses. There was a school trip that cost $80. I asked my mother if she could help pay for it. She said money was tight and that I should get a part-time job. I reminded her that she had just spent $300 on gymnastics classes. She said Winona was younger and needed more support. My father moved in about a week after the kids did. He did not ask if that was okay. He just showed up with his clothes and furniture. My mother was thrilled. She kept saying she had her family back. Things changed fast after that. My mother started cooking big dinners every night. She would make things the kids liked. She would ask them what they wanted to eat. If there were leftovers, my father would take them to work the next day. A few times I came home from school and there was nothing in the fridge for me to eat. My mother said I should have been home for dinner. They started doing family activities on weekends. Movies, dinners at restaurants, trips to the park. A few times I came downstairs on Saturday morning and everyone was gone. My mother would text me later saying they went out for breakfast. She would say she thought I was still sleeping and did not want to wake me. This happened 4 or 5 times. I tried talking to my mother about it. I sat her down one evening when my father had taken the kids to a basketball game. I told her I felt invisible. I told her I was still her daughter and that I needed her too. She got upset. She said I was 17 and almost an adult. She said Travis and Winona were younger and had lost their mother. She said they needed more attention right now. She said I was being selfish and that I should be happy she was helping kids who had nobody. I pointed out that they had my father. She said he was doing his best but that he worked long hours and could not do it alone. I asked her what he did all evening when he was home. She did not answer that. The truth was he did not do much. He would sit on the couch watching TV while my mother cooked, cleaned, helped with homework, and put the kids to bed. I asked her if she remembered working 2 jobs to keep us alive while he paid nothing. She told me to stop living in the past. I asked her if he had apologized for that. She said he had and that I needed to move on. My friend Ashley's family noticed what was happening. Ashley's mother Karen asked me one day if everything was okay at home. I told her it was fine. She said Ashley had told her some things and that she was worried. I broke down and told her everything. Karen said I could stay with them if I needed to. I thought about it for a week. Then one night my mother went out to dinner with my father and the kids. They did not tell me they were going. I found out when I came home from work and the house was empty. There was no note. I texted my mother and she said they went to celebrate Travis making the basketball team. I asked why I was not invited. She said it was a surprise plan and happened last minute. I called Karen and asked if the offer was still open. She said yes. I packed my things that night. I took my clothes, my laptop, my documents, and the few things that mattered to me. I left a note on the kitchen table. The note said I was moving out and that I would be staying with a friend. I did not say where or with who. My mother called me the next afternoon. She asked where I was. I told her I was staying with Ashley's family. She asked why. I said she knew why. She said I was overreacting and being dramatic. She said if I wanted to act like an adult then I should come home and talk like an adult. I told her there was nothing to talk about. She said I was making a huge mistake. I hung up. She called twice more that week. Both times she said I was being ridiculous and that I needed to come home. She did not ask if I was okay. She did not say she missed me. She did not say she wanted to fix things. She just said I was causing problems and embarrassing her. My 17th birthday was 2 weeks after I moved out. My mother did not call. She did not text. Ashley's family bought me a cake and gave me a card with $50 in it. Karen hugged me and said I deserved better. I finished my senior year living with Ashley's family. I got a job at a grocery store and saved money. My mother called once every few weeks. The calls were short. She would ask how I was doing and I would say fine. She would say I should come visit and I would say maybe. Then we would hang up. She never actually invited me to anything specific. After I graduated, I moved into a dorm for college. I had gotten some financial aid and loans. I worked part-time throughout college to pay for expenses. My mother called maybe once every 2 months. She would ask basic questions about school. She never asked if I needed anything. She never offered to help with money even though I knew she was still working. On my 18th birthday, she did not call. On my 19th birthday, she sent a text that said happy birthday. On my 20th birthday, she did not do anything. I stopped expecting anything from her. I heard things through extended family. My Aunt Michelle would tell me that my mother was very involved with Travis and Winona. She went to all their school events. She threw them birthday parties. She posted photos of them on social media. My aunt asked me once if I was in contact with my mother and I said barely. My aunt said that was sad but she did not push it. By the time I turned 21, I had stopped calling my mother entirely. She would still call me every few months but I rarely answered. If I did answer, the conversations lasted less than 5 minutes. I got a decent job after college and moved into a small apartment in Fontana. I was doing okay. I had friends and coworkers I liked. I had built a life that did not include my mother. Then 2 months after I turned 22, I got a call from a number I did not recognize. I answered because I thought it might be work-related. It was my mother. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. She kept saying my name over and over. I asked her what was wrong. She said she needed to see me. She said it was important. I asked what happened. She said she could not talk about it on the phone. I told her I was busy. She started crying harder. I hung up. 10 minutes later, my Aunt Michelle texted me. She said my mother was in trouble and needed help. She said I should call her back. I ignored it. Then my uncle Russell texted. Then my cousin Penny. They all said the same thing. They said my mother was going through something bad and needed her daughter. I texted my aunt back and asked what was going on. She said it was not her place to say but that I should meet with my mother. I said no. She kept texting me. So did my uncle and my cousin. They kept saying I was being cruel and that family helps family. I finally agreed to meet my mother at a coffee shop that weekend. I told her she had 1 hour. Update 1: I met my mother at the coffee shop last Saturday. I got there early and ordered a coffee. I sat in the back corner. She showed up 15 minutes late. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. She had lost weight and her face looked different. There were dark circles under her eyes. Her hair was gray at the roots. She looked at least 10 years older than the last time I saw her. She sat down across from me and just stared at the table. I waited. Finally, she started talking. She said my father was cheating on her. She said she found out 3 months ago when she saw messages on his phone. The messages were with a woman he worked with. My mother said she confronted him and he did not even deny it. He told her he had been seeing this woman for over a year. I did not say anything. She kept talking. She said she thought about leaving but she had nowhere to go. She said they had a joint bank account and when she checked it last month, most of the money was gone. My father had been withdrawing large amounts over the past 6 months. She asked him where the money went and he said it was none of her business. She said there was maybe $2,000 left in the account. She told me that Travis and Winona treat her like a maid. She said they do not respect her and that they talk to her the way my father does. She said Winona told her last week that she was not her real mother and to stop acting like she was. She said Travis has stopped doing any chores and when she asks him to help, he tells her to ask his dad. My mother said she still works full-time at the hospital but all her money goes to the household. My father contributes nothing now. She pays the rent, buys the groceries, pays the utilities. She said he has not paid for anything in 8 months. When she brings it up, he tells her to stop nagging. She said she wants to leave but she does not have money for a deposit on a new place. She said she has been looking at apartments but everything requires first and last month rent plus a security deposit. She said she has been trying to save but there is never anything left at the end of the month. Then she looked at me. She said she was sorry. She said she should have treated me better. She said she made a mistake. She said she needed help and did not know who else to ask. I asked her why she thought I would help her. She said because I was her daughter. I reminded her that she forgot my 18th, 19th, and 20th birthdays. I reminded her that she chose my father and his kids over me. I reminded her that when I moved out at 17, she did not even try to stop me. I told her she made her choice and now she had to live with it. She started crying. She said she knew she messed up but that she was desperate. She said she had nobody else. I told her that was her own fault. I finished my coffee and stood up. She grabbed my arm and asked me not to leave. I pulled my arm away and walked out. I got about a dozen texts that night. My Aunt Michelle called me selfish. My Uncle Russell said I was heartless. My cousin Penny said I should be ashamed. They all said my mother was in crisis and that I was turning my back on her. I did not respond to any of them. Ashley called me that night. I told her what happened. She asked me how I felt about it. I said I did not know. She said I did not owe my mother anything. She said my mother had made her choices and now had to deal with the consequences. That made sense to me. I went to work on Monday and tried not to think about it. But I kept replaying the conversation in my head. I kept seeing how old my mother looked. I kept hearing her crying in the coffee shop. On Tuesday night, I called my Aunt Michelle. I asked her if what my mother told me was true. She said yes. She said my father had changed after they got married. She said he had become controlling and mean. She said my mother had become a shell of who she used to be. I asked my aunt why she did not help my mother. She said she had offered but my mother refused. She said my mother was too proud to accept help from anyone except me. I asked why my mother thought I would help after everything. My aunt said because I was her daughter and that was what daughters did. I thought about it for another week. People on my original post had very different opinions. Some people said I should walk away and never look back. Some people said I should help her because she was my mother. Some people said I should help her leave my father but then go no contact. I read all the comments multiple times. The more I thought about it, the more I kept coming back to one thing. My mother had a choice when I was 17 and she chose wrong. But she was still my mother. She had raised me for 17 years. She had worked 2 jobs to keep us fed and housed. She had been a good mother before my father came back. Part of me wanted to leave her in the situation she created. But another part of me could not forget the woman who used to make Sunday pancakes and worked night shifts so I could have school supplies. I decided I would help her but only in one specific way. I called her last Thursday. She answered on the first ring. I told her I would pay for a divorce lawyer. I said I would pay the retainer and the fees but that was it. I told her she needed to file for divorce and leave my father. I said if she did that, I would help her with the legal costs. I said that was the only help I was offering. I was not giving her money for rent. I was not letting her move in with me. I was not giving her a monthly allowance. Just the lawyer. She was quiet for a long time. Then she asked if I was serious. I said yes. She asked why I was doing this. I told her it was because of who she used to be, not who she had become. I told her that if she stayed with my father, the offer was off the table. I told her to find a lawyer and send me the information directly. She said she would think about it. I told her she had 1 week to decide. Then I hung up. I got a text from her 5 days later. She sent me the name and contact information for a divorce lawyer. She said she had a consultation scheduled for the following Monday. She asked if the offer was still available. I said yes. She sent me the lawyer's payment information. I paid the retainer that day. It was $1,500. The lawyer's office confirmed receipt and said my mother's consultation was set. My mother texted me, "Thank you." I did not respond. Some of my family members are still upset with me. My Aunt Michelle texted me last night and said I should do more. She said my mother needs a place to stay and that I should let her move in with me. I told my aunt that if she felt that strongly about it, she should let my mother stay with her. My aunt said her house was too small. I said that was not my problem. She has not texted me back. I do not know what will happen next. My mother has her consultation with the lawyer tomorrow. I guess I will find out if she actually goes through with it. Part of me thinks she will back out. Part of me thinks she will go back to my father and try to make it work. If she does that, I am done. I will block her number and move on with my life. But if she actually files for divorce and leaves him, then I guess I will have paid my debt for the first 17 years of my life. After that, we will see. I am not making any promises beyond the lawyer fees. Update 2: My mother went to the consultation. She hired the lawyer I paid for. The lawyer filed the divorce papers 2 weeks ago. My father was served at his workplace. My mother texted me to let me know. I did not respond. Last week, my mother moved out. She found a small apartment in a bad part of town. The rent is cheap but the building is run down. She sent me the address. I do not know why. I have not visited. My Aunt Michelle called me last Friday. She said my mother was living in a terrible place and could barely afford food. She said the apartment has mold and the heat barely works. She said I should give my mother more money or let her stay with me until she gets back on her feet. I told my aunt I had done what I said I would do. I told her the lawyer fees were covered and that was the extent of my help. My aunt called me cold. I hung up. My cousin Penny texted me over the weekend. She said my mother was crying all the time and not eating. She said my mother had lost more weight and looked sick. She said I was being cruel by not doing more. I asked my cousin why she did not help if she was so concerned. She said she had her own family to take care of. I said that was interesting and stopped responding. On Monday, my mother called me. I did not answer. She called again on Tuesday. I did not answer that either. She left a voicemail. I listened to it. She said the divorce was moving forward. She said my father had hired his own lawyer. She said his lawyer was claiming my father had no money and that there was nothing to split. She said the lawyer was saying my father had debts and that my mother might be responsible for half of them. She said she found out my father had been gambling. She said he had been going to a casino 2 hours away for the past year. She said that was where all the money from their joint account had gone. She said the lawyer told her there was almost no chance she would get anything from the divorce because there was nothing left to take. She said Travis and Winona were staying with my father. She said they refused to speak to her. She said my father had told them she abandoned them. She said Winona sent her a message calling her a liar and saying she never wanted to see her again. She said Travis blocked her number. At the end of the voicemail, she said she knew I did not want to talk to her but that she wanted me to know she was grateful for the lawyer. She said it was more than she deserved. Then the voicemail ended. I saved the voicemail but I did not call her back. I do not know what else there is to say. She made her choices. I helped her get out. That is all I agreed to do. My Uncle Russell called me yesterday. He said I was a terrible daughter. He said my mother had given up everything for me when I was a kid and now I was abandoning her when she needed me most. I asked him if he remembered my mother working 2 jobs while my father paid 0 child support. I asked him if he remembered my mother letting my father move back in and then ignoring me for 4 years. My uncle said that was in the past. I said it was my past and I got to decide how much it mattered. He called me unforgivable and hung up. I talked to Ashley about all of this last night. She asked me if I felt guilty. I said no. She asked if I felt bad. I said a little but not enough to change anything. She said that made sense. She said I had drawn a clear boundary and stuck to it. She said that was healthy. Some people on my original post said I should have helped more. Some people said I should have done nothing at all. I think what I did was right. I gave my mother a way out. She took it. Now she has to figure out the rest on her own. That is fair. The lawyer called me yesterday. She said the divorce should be finalized in about 2 months. She said my mother would not be getting any money from it because there was nothing to get. She said my father had drained everything. She said my mother might actually owe some of his debts depending on how the judge rules. The lawyer said my mother knew this and was still moving forward with the divorce. The lawyer asked if I wanted to be updated on the case. I said no. I said to send all updates directly to my mother. My mother texted me this morning. She said, "Thank you again." She said she understood if I never wanted to see her. She said she did not blame me. She said she hoped one day I could forgive her, but that she understood if I could not. I read the text but did not respond. I do not think I will ever have a relationship with my mother again. Too much has happened. She chose my father and his kids over me when I needed her. Now she is paying for that choice. I helped her escape, but I am not going to rebuild what she destroyed. Some things cannot be fixed. I am okay with how things turned out. I did what I thought was right. I paid for her lawyer so she could leave a bad situation. That was enough. I do not owe her anything else. Update 3: The divorce was finalized 3 weeks ago. My mother texted me to let me know. She did not get any money. She is responsible for half of a credit card debt that my father racked up. The amount is $4,000. She is making monthly payments on it. My Aunt Michelle called me the day after the divorce was final. She said my mother was struggling and barely making rent. She said my mother had asked other family members for money and everyone had said no. She said I should step up because I was her daughter. I told my aunt I had already stepped up by paying for the lawyer. I told her that was all I was going to do. My aunt said I would regret this one day. I said maybe, but that was my choice to make. She hung up. My mother has called me 4 times in the past 3 weeks. I have not answered any of the calls. She has left voicemails. The first voicemail was her saying she understood if I did not want to talk but that she wanted to hear my voice. The second voicemail was her asking if we could meet for coffee. The third voicemail was her crying and saying she missed me. The fourth voicemail was her saying she was sorry for everything. I deleted all of the voicemails without listening to them fully. I know that sounds harsh. But I do not want to hear her apologies. I do not want to hear her say she misses me. Those words do not mean anything now. She had years to say them and she did not. She had years to choose me and she did not. Now it is too late. My cousin Penny sent me a long message last week. She said my mother talks about me constantly. She said my mother regrets how she treated me. She said my mother knows she messed up and wants to make things right. She said I should give my mother another chance. I did not respond to the message. My uncle Russell sent me a message a few days ago. He said my mother had been asking about me at a family gathering. He said she looked terrible and that everyone was worried about her. He said the family thought I should reach out. I blocked my uncle's number. I also blocked my Aunt Michelle and my cousin Penny. I am tired of them trying to make me feel guilty. I am tired of them acting like I am the one who did something wrong. My mother made her choices. I made mine. I do not need their input. Ashley asked me last night if I ever think about reaching out to my mother. I said no. She asked if I thought I would ever change my mind. I said I did not think so. She asked if I was okay with that. I said yes. I am okay with how this ended. I gave my mother a way out of a bad situation. I paid for her divorce lawyer. That was more than she deserved based on how she treated me. But I did it anyway because of who she used to be. That debt is now paid. I do not owe her anything else. Some people will think I'm heartless. Some people will think I should have helped more. Some people will think I should have walked away completely and not helped at all. I do not care what people think. I know what I can live with and this is it. My mother will have to figure out her life on her own. She is an adult. She made choices that led her to where she is now. I am not responsible for fixing her life. I am not responsible for making her feel better about her mistakes. I am responsible for my own life and that is it. I do not think my mother will stop trying to contact me. She will probably call on my birthday. She will probably try to reach out on holidays. I will ignore those attempts just like I have ignored everything else. At some point she will give up. Or maybe she will not. Either way it does not matter. I have built a life that does not include her. I have friends who care about me. I have a job I like. I have an apartment that is mine. I have stability and peace. I am not going to give that up to let my mother back into my life. She had her chance. She chose my father and his kids. Now she gets to live with that choice. This is the last update I will post. There is nothing else to say. The story is over. I helped my mother leave my father. She is divorced now. She is on her own. I am moving forward with my life. That is it. To anyone reading this who is in a similar situation, I will say this. You do not owe people forgiveness. You do not owe people a relationship just because they are family. You get to decide what you can live with. You get to decide what your boundaries are. You get to decide when enough is enough. Do not let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. Do not let anyone tell you that you are being cruel for choosing your own peace. You matter too. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. I refused to split my daughter's college fund with my stepson, then found my wife applying for $50,000 in loans using my name. You forced me to take desperate measures, she said while caught red-handed. I need to share what happened last week. My household has been in complete chaos, and I'm not sure if I've made the right choice. I'm 40 years old and have been married to Linda, 37, For 5 years. I have a daughter, Sarah, 17, from a previous relationship with Karen. Linda has a son, Mark, 19, from her previous marriage. This whole mess started because of Sarah's college fund. When Sarah was born, I was 23 and working at an office supply store. The pay wasn't great, but I was determined to give her opportunities I never had. My parents were always struggling with money when I was growing up. There were many nights when dinner was just rice with whatever vegetables were on sale. I remember how my dad had to work 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. My mom would sit at the kitchen table surrounded by bills, trying to figure out which ones could wait another month. I promised myself that my child would never have to worry about money for education. Even though things with Karen were rocky from the beginning, I opened a college savings account for Sarah when she was only a few weeks old. Karen thought it was a waste of money we didn't have, but I insisted. When Sarah was 2, Karen and I split up. She moved to another state with her new boyfriend and rarely kept in touch with Sarah. I became a full-time single dad overnight. Those years were tough. I worked at the office supply store during the day and picked up weekend shifts at a local restaurant. Some weeks, I only saw Sarah during breakfast and when tucking her in at night. My mom helped watch her when she could, but she had her own health problems. Every month without fail, I put money into Sarah's college fund. Sometimes it was only $30, but I never skipped a month. When Sarah was around 7, I started including her in the process. After my weekend shifts, we would count the tip money together at the kitchen table. She would carefully arrange the bills and coins, and I would tell her how this money was going to help her go to college someday. She would ask questions about college, and I would tell her about all the exciting things she could study and the people she would meet. I met Linda when Sarah was 11 and Mark was 13. By then, I had worked my way up to manager at the office supply store, and Sarah's college fund had grown substantially. Linda was impressed by how dedicated I was to saving for Sarah's future. She told me about her ex-husband who had secret credit cards and racked up thousands in debt without her knowledge. Because of this experience, she was very careful with money and preferred keeping our finances separate. I was fine with this arrangement since it had always been just Sarah and me. My relationship with Mark never fully connected. He wasn't hostile, but he had a strong bond with his father, who lived nearby and saw him regularly. Mark spent every other weekend with his dad, plus Wednesday dinners. I saw myself more as a friendly mentor than a replacement father. I tried to engage with Mark's interests and attend his school events when possible. Over the years, I noticed that Linda, despite her good income as a real estate agent, wasn't saving for Mark's education. She spent freely on home renovations, weekend trips, and designer clothes. Several times, I gently suggested she start a college fund for Mark, but she always brushed it off, saying they would figure it out when the time came. Last month, everything came to a head. Sarah is finishing her senior year of high school with excellent grades and several extracurricular activities. She received acceptance letters from several top universities, including her dream school. One evening, I sat down with Sarah to look at her college fund. Over the past 17 years, I had managed to save enough to cover her tuition and most living expenses for 4 years at her top choice school. When I showed her the total, her eyes filled with tears. She hugged me tightly and thanked me repeatedly. I told her how proud I was of her hard work and that this was exactly what I had been saving for all these years. Later that night, I told Linda about the moment with Sarah over dinner. Linda didn't share my excitement. After a long silence, she asked about Mark's college options. I reminded her that we had discussed starting a fund for him several times over the years. She admitted she hadn't saved anything for Mark's education, then suggested that we split Sarah's fund between both kids since we were a family now. She claimed it was only fair. I immediately refused. The money was specifically for Sarah and had been saved for years before Linda and Mark entered our lives. Linda became angry, accusing me of favoritism and not considering Mark as part of the family. I tried to explain that it wasn't about playing favorites, it was about keeping a promise I had made to Sarah before I even met Linda. The argument escalated. Linda brought up past situations where she felt I had treated the kids differently, while I pointed out that I had tried to include Mark but respected his relationship with his biological father. Unfortunately, the kids overheard our fight. Mark stormed in, visibly upset after learning what we were arguing about. He said it confirmed what he already suspected, that I didn't consider him family. He left the house to stay with his father. Sarah later approached me, upset and offering to split her fund with Mark. I told her the money was hers and this wasn't her problem to solve. For days afterward, the atmosphere at home was unbearable. Linda barely spoke to me except to make pointed comments about family loyalty. Mark stayed with his father and wouldn't respond to my messages. Sarah walked around the house like she was stepping on eggshells. Linda remained firm that I should split the fund. I suggested other options for Mark: scholarships, financial aid, community college for 2 years before transferring, or trade school. Linda dismissed all these ideas as second-rate options and accused me of trying to sabotage Mark's future. What complicates this situation is that Mark had previously mentioned interest in becoming an electrician rather than attending a traditional 4-year college. Linda always changed the subject when he brought it up, insisting he needed a bachelor's degree. Now I'm being portrayed as the villain for protecting the future I've spent 17 years building for my daughter. Linda and Mark aren't speaking to me, and Sarah feels guilty for something that isn't her fault. Am I wrong for refusing to split Sarah's college fund? Update 1. It's been a month since my last post, and I'm still trying to process everything that's happened. The situation with Linda didn't improve after my original post. We attempted to talk calmly about Mark's education options several times, but each conversation quickly turned into accusations and arguments. Linda remained unmoved in her position that splitting Sarah's fund was the only acceptable solution. The atmosphere in our home became increasingly tense. Sarah started spending more time at her friend's house to escape the tension, while Mark continued staying with his father most days. Linda and I were existing in the same space but barely communicating beyond necessary household matters. Last Thursday, everything changed. I normally work until 6 p.m., but a scheduled meeting was cancelled, allowing me to leave work early. When I arrived home around 3:30 p.m., I found Linda and Mark sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by papers. They jumped when I walked in, and Linda quickly attempted to gather the documents. Something about their reaction seemed suspicious, so I asked what they were doing. Linda claimed they were just looking at college brochures, but I noticed official-looking forms with my name on them. When I picked up one of the papers, I discovered it was an application for a personal loan in my name. Further inspection revealed credit card applications, also in my name. The truth hit me like a truck. Linda and Mark had been using my personal information to apply for loans and credit cards without my knowledge or consent. Based on the papers I saw, they had applied for 3 credit cards with high limits and 2 personal loans totaling nearly $50,000. Their plan was to use this fraudulently obtained money to fund Mark's education. I confronted them immediately. Linda didn't deny what they had done but tried to justify it by saying I had forced them to take desperate measures with my selfishness. Mark remained silent, looking at the floor, but didn't contradict his mother. The betrayal was overwhelming. Not only had they gone behind my back, but they had potentially put my financial future and credit score at risk. What they did was identity theft, a serious crime that could have devastating consequences. I told Linda that what she had done was completely unacceptable and possibly illegal. I informed her that I would be immediately canceling all these fraudulent applications and that I needed space to think. I packed some clothes and essential items and went to stay with my brother Tom. While at Tom's place, I had time to reflect on my marriage to Linda. When we first met, I was drawn to her confidence and how well she seemed to connect with Sarah. Linda would bring Sarah little gifts and take genuine interest in her school projects. She helped Sarah with her first school dance outfit and taught her how to apply simple makeup for the occasion. However, as I looked back, I realized there were warning signs I had ignored. Linda's spending habits were always concerning. She would impulsively buy expensive items, then justify them as investments or necessities. She often made comments about how lucky Sarah was to have a college fund, rather than being inspired to start one for Mark. Whenever I brought up financial planning for Mark's future, she would change the subject or promise to start saving next month. I also reflected on my relationship with Mark. Perhaps I had been trying too hard to force a father-son dynamic that wasn't natural for either of us. Mark already had an involved father, and my attempts to fill that role might have created more tension than connection. Despite this, I cared for Mark and wanted him to succeed. After a week of consideration, I returned home and asked Linda for a private conversation. I told her directly that her actions, attempting to commit identity theft, were a deal-breaker for me. I wanted a divorce. Linda's reaction swung between extremes. First, she cried and begged for another chance, saying she was just desperate to help Mark. Then she became angry, accusing me of never accepting Mark, caring more about money than family, and throwing away our marriage over one mistake. I explained that this wasn't just about the fraud attempt. It was about a pattern of behavior, disrespecting boundaries, attempting to guilt me into decisions, breaching trust, and fundamentally different values about family and finances. The identity theft attempt was simply the final straw. I spoke with Sarah and Mark separately about my decision. Sarah was upset but admitted she had been uncomfortable with Linda's attitude toward her college fund for years. I assured her that her education fund was secure and that none of this was her fault. My conversation with Mark was surprisingly productive. He apologized for his part in the loan applications, admitting that Linda had pressured him into it. He then confided that what he really wanted was to pursue a career as an electrician, not attend a 4-year university. Linda had been pushing her own vision for his future while ignoring his interests. I told Mark I supported his interest in trade school and would help him research programs if he wanted. For now, I'm staying with my brother while working with a lawyer on the divorce proceedings. Sarah is primarily living with me, though she visits the house to collect items as needed. I've made it clear to Mark that despite the divorce, I still care about him and want to maintain a relationship. He seemed relieved by this. This is certainly not how I expected my marriage to end, but after what happened, I don't see how I could ever trust Linda again. Update 2. It's been 6 months since the identity theft incident, and my divorce from Linda was finalized last month. The process was challenging but ultimately the right decision for everyone involved. During the divorce proceedings, I discovered something that put the whole college fund situation into an even clearer perspective. Linda had accumulated over $30,000 in credit card debt that she had hidden from me throughout our marriage. Her spending on luxury items and home renovations had put her in a precarious financial position, which explained her desperate grab for Sarah's college fund and subsequent attempt at identity theft. This revelation brought me back to my childhood, watching my parents struggle with mounting bills. It reinforced my commitment to ensuring Sarah would never face that kind of financial insecurity for her education. Sarah has now completed her first semester at her dream university, studying marine biology. She calls me regularly, excited about her classes and the research opportunities she's found. She's made several close friends and joined the university's Environmental Action Club. She's also working part-time at the campus bookstore to cover some of her personal expenses. College hasn't been without challenges for her. She had difficulties with her first roommate and struggled with a particularly demanding chemistry professor. But she's handling these obstacles with determination. Last week, she proudly told me she received an A on a research paper that she had worked on for weeks. Hearing the enthusiasm in her voice makes all the years of saving and recent turmoil worthwhile. Surprisingly, my relationship with Mark has improved significantly since the divorce. Without the forced family dynamic and Linda's pressure, we've developed a more natural mentor-mentee rapport. Mark is working full-time at a local garage and taking 2 evening classes at the community college to prepare for an electrician apprenticeship program. We meet for lunch every other week, and he's started opening up more about his goals and concerns. I've been helping him create a budget and teaching him about saving, skills Linda never emphasized. Together, we've researched several electrician apprenticeship programs, and he's planning to apply next spring. He seems more confident and focused now that he's pursuing his own interests rather than his mother's expectations. Linda has struggled since the divorce. She had to downsize to a smaller apartment and has taken a second job at a department store to supplement her real estate income, which has declined in the current market. She occasionally contacts me, swinging between apologetic messages and bitter accusations. I maintain minimal contact, communicating only when necessary regarding final divorce matters. Last month, Linda showed up at my apartment unannounced after apparently having several drinks. She alternated between sobbing and demanding we reconcile. I didn't engage with her emotional state and instead called her sister to pick her up. For Mark's sake, I hope she gets the help she needs. On a personal note, I've cautiously started dating again. I met Rachel at a local book club, and we've been seeing each other for about 2 months. I'm taking things very slowly, mindful of the lessons learned from my marriage to Linda. I've been clear with Rachel about my priorities. Sarah comes first, and I'm wary of blending families again. Despite everything that happened, Sarah and Mark have maintained a friendly relationship. They text occasionally, and when Sarah was home for winter break, they went to a movie together. I'm glad that their sibling bond survived the adult conflict. Life has settled into a new normal. There are still challenges, but overall, things are moving in a positive direction. I'm focused on supporting Sarah through college, mentoring Mark with his career goals, and rebuilding my own life one day at a time. Update 3: It's been a year since the identity theft incident that ended my marriage, and I wanted to provide a final update on how our lives have progressed. Sarah has completed her freshman year of college with excellent grades. She's thriving in her marine biology program and has secured a summer internship at a coastal research facility. The college fund has covered all her educational expenses as planned, allowing her to focus on her studies without financial stress. She's become more independent and confident, even handling a minor health scare without calling me immediately, though she did tell me about it afterward. Mark successfully entered an electrician apprenticeship program 3 months ago. He's enjoying the hands-on work and earning while learning, exactly as he had hoped. We still meet regularly, and I've helped him set up his first investment account with some of his earnings. He recently told me he's saving for his own place, showing financial responsibility that makes me proud of his growth. Linda's situation has been more complicated. After our divorce, her financial problems worsened. She eventually had to declare bankruptcy due to her accumulated debt. This difficult experience seems to have prompted some reflection. Last month, she contacted me with a formal apology for the identity theft attempt, acknowledging that her actions were wrong without making excuses. While I appreciated the gesture, I maintained my boundaries and kept the conversation brief. My relationship with Rachel has developed gradually over the past year. She's a high school English teacher with a practical approach to life that I find refreshing after Linda's impulsivity. Rachel has met Sarah several times during school breaks, and they get along well. She understands my cautious approach to relationship milestones and respects the priority I place on my relationship with Sarah. The most unexpected development has been watching Sarah and Mark's relationship evolve into a genuine friendship. Despite having no obligation to stay connected, they've chosen to maintain their bond. When Sarah learned that Mark's car needed expensive repairs last month, she offered him some of her summer job money to help. He declined but was clearly touched by the gesture. I recently consulted a financial advisor to restructure my savings now that Sarah's education is funded. I've started planning for retirement and set up an emergency fund to prevent future financial insecurity. Last week, I ran into Linda's sister at the grocery store. She mentioned that Linda has started attending financial management classes and is working with a debt counselor. Though our marriage couldn't be saved, I'm glad she's taking steps to address the issues that contributed to our problems. Looking back at this chapter of my life, I've learned valuable lessons about commitment, boundaries, and the importance of shared values in relationships. I stood by my promise to Sarah, even when it was difficult, and that decision has allowed her to pursue her dreams without the burden of educational debt. I've also learned that supporting someone doesn't always mean following the traditional path. Mark is finding success in a career that suits his talents and interests, even though it wasn't what his mother envisioned for him. The college fund that became the catalyst for so much conflict ultimately served its intended purpose. Sarah called me last night, excited about a research project she's joining next semester, and I was reminded of why I started saving all those years ago. Some promises are worth keeping, no matter what.